Oh, I'm hearing noises.
This is all the people that called in.
Yeah, they're all the people joining the meeting.
Start the video.
Oh, wow, thanks. Oh, man. I wasn't going to start if I didn't get a hand clap. Two. We good, Billy? Billy gives me a little short hand up. Look, I'm going to move around a little bit. So I'm not that big, but you need a wide view. So first I want to say hello to everybody in the room. Y'all are friends. Y'all know each other. Know Norman. What's up, man? And I want to say hello to everybody online. I know a bunch of my buddies are tuning in. So howdy. Here for just some fun and entertainment for the next 3 hours. So just get comfortable. And we're going to talk about Bifoliate Cattleya. I know you can see behind me a few of them, like Lester said, but we've got different kinds of things. And I think we're going to handle this sort of like if I was an orchid judge per se, and I'm like in my training thing, and I'm going to go through, I'm going to show you species, and I'm going to show you some of the hybrids, and tell you how to grow them, all those sorts of things. So we're going to kind of go with that sort of format. But I don't have any notes. I haven't studied for this. I just grabbed some plants in the hour before I left the shop, and here we are. So we'll see how this goes. So we'll start with species because that's where everybody starts, right? Right. Come on, you got it right. Thanks, Rita. Thanks. Let's start with the most basic. Cattleyas intermedia. It comes from Brazil. I know Francisco Miranda told me. He says, like, oh, this plant here, that one's hard to grow. This is that, and the other. Intermedia, you can run it over the truck, and it's still fine. So lots of people know this. What they may not know is that it can flower a couple times a year. Here's middle summer, and we've got intermediate flower, which normally is going to be winter blooming for us. So intermediate and bloom summertime. So really easy to grow. It's not picky about its root system. And that's one of the biggest things with growing Bifoliate Cattleya. You have to keep the roots happy. Nobody wrote any notes? Are you serious? Oh man, Brian, I thought you were writing notes, dude. It's just easy. Okay. So you don't really have to write notes, but the main thing you need to know about Bifoliate Cattleyas is that you have to keep the roots happy. All right. If you're going to handle it, it's got to be an active root growth. That's like the biggest thing. Now, Intermedia, like Francisco said, run it over with a truck. This one's not picky. You can handle it anytime through the year, it'd be all right. There's other ones you pop in the wrong time of the year, you might as well just kiss it goodbye. I don't care how pretty the plant is, it's probably going to die. So we're going to talk about some of those reasons that we pop things the way we do and show you some of the things we do. So that's kind of cool. I'm going to show you, so let's go with another kind of basic one most people know. And Billy, you got to get this up close. Oh, there we go. This is a Cattleyas, and this one's called Apollo, 84 point AM. This is from Ben Oliveros. Cool thing is, this one's on a second blooming just this summer. So these, when they're really happy, will bloom 2 or 3 times all through the season for the summertime. For me, I generally get 2 flowers, maybe 3. There is some thought pattern out there, and some people prove this out, that growing a Cattleyas in actually lower light will produce more flowers. It's kind of productive for Cattleya people. Usually we say more light, more light, more light. This one, though, supposedly grown in a little less light, will actually produce more flowers on the stem. But this is a truly monstrous flower, and actually just swapped some pollen on this, let the flowers to hold up. But one thing I want to show you too in our potting method here, see how it's growing down the side of the pot? Loves it. Each bulb, though, if you look back, 2 to 3 roots per bulb. That means that you got those 2 or 3 roots. If you mess up those 2 or 3 roots, bye-bye a Cattleyas. I had Roy Tokunaga gave my dad one time a tetraploid, I think it was a cerulean, and he was all excited. He says, this one will get 3 flowers on it. So that was like a big thing for breeding and all that. I had to plant for 2 years, and it never grew for 2 years, and then finally died. That's pretty amazing, though, to think about no new roots, no new leaves, and the plant lasted 2 years. But that's the thing about it, messing with the plant at the wrong time. Now, this one, it still has a few active roots on it. They're maybe that long, but they're already attached to the pot. It'd be really hard to get a piece of this off. But generally, I'll pop them off and put them in another pot. But what I want to show you, part of our potting method here, is we have cork wedged around a pot. So what I usually will do when I get a plant like this and I don't want to disturb it, I'll take the whole plant, set it in a big pot, and I take cork. Everybody knows what cork is? I just look to see if you're awake. Okay. Now the important part with cork is this: don't put it horizontally. A lot of times when you mount, like I know Bill Thomas talks about mounting bulbos, he says horizontal cork, because it'll hold water, and you want that for a bulbo. You don't want that for this potting method. You put it vertically. That way it drains. But you want to wedge a couple pieces in front of the pot. That will anchor the other pot, the plastic pot, or whatever it's in, inside a larger pot. And with that vertical cork, there's really no potting medium. You can't overwater it. And the cork will take 10 years or more to break down. So that's a long time in the pot without having to disturb it. So how many people know, like sometimes you pot something, you get mold in your bark, whatever goes on, you lose those roots out of that plant, right? So keep the roots happy, that's the big thing. We even have a fern in there. That's in case you get too much moisture. Ferns, okay. Anyway, we'll move on. So the Cattleyas, really nice to meet you. We'll show you another one that maybe you don't. Actually, I'm going to show you the familiar ones first. Let's do that. Let's do the familiar ones first. Everybody said that's good, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. The only people talking to me have food in their mouth. All right. So this is what we used to call Lodogesii variety Harrisoni. And we pull this one up too. This is kind of a funky plant, so we'll kind of look at these together. It looks similar, right?
Yeah.
So this is Lodogesii variety Harrisoni. That's what we used to call it. Now it's just called Cattleyas Harrisoni. A little bit skinnier flower, but you see the color pattern? Nice and bright, almost like a hot pink. So this will actually breed on. Now there is a plant that is somewhat of a cross between this and Lodogesii, which looks kind of halfway between these two. And that's Lodogesii variety Harrisoni, or whatever you call it. I actually came up with a term for it, and it's called Lodogesiana or Harrisoni. Everybody got that? So it's a combination of both species, because somewhere down the line, this one plant of Streeter's Choice, it's some kind of combination. It's got to be for the breeding, because Harrisoni really are they look just like this, and regular Lodogesii has large flower. But there's a plant of Streeter's Choice that makes this thing. This is the parent, or the Streeter's Choice be a parent of this plant. It's a much larger, fuller flower. Isn't that great? This one's called Cole Kelly. Anybody doesn't know, that's my nephew. Super awesome kid. This one just got awarded in Philly, I want to say 2 months ago, and I think we got a high AM. In fact, they were debating about FCC. I think it's actually the best of the Verdianas. So Sarah and I were down in I'm just gonna set these right down here. So just excuse my head for a second. So Sarah and I were down in South Carolina. I was speaking to a club down there, and a guy brought one of those into the meeting. He had just got an award. I said, "That's nice. Where'd you get it?" He said, "Carter Homes." The next day, we were at the Carter Homes. Not on purpose. We were going there anyway. But we go there, and it's Tom Nasser and I. And I'm like, "Where's that cross you guys just made?" Because that's loaded GCI, Streeter's Choice, which gets how many flowers on the stem? 5 flowers. Okay. And then it's crossed onto another plant, and it's called Violaceae muse, the FCC. And how many flowers does that get on a stem? 5. So if you grow the plant that I just showed you really, really well, how many flowers do you get on a stem?
25.
Well, we have 5, and you have 5. So how many do you think? 10. So you're going to add it. Brian, you did the multiplication. Who's closer? Brian's closer. So far, the most I've put on was 22 flowers on one stem. So isn't that crazy? That hybrid bigger. So crazy, crazy plants. But I'm going to show you how to do that.
Now, that first one you were talking about, the Harrisoniae variety of GCI or
Yeah.
vice versa, is that perhaps a natural hybrid in situ?
Probably not. No, there's actually, you can actually trace it back. They actually know what the parents were and all that sort of thing. So it was not a natural hybrid. But I'm going to show you how to get a plant up to full size. But I want to show you something before we start. Do I have any other species here? Do I have any other species up here? Come on.
I think so.
Just say yes or no. Okay. Yes. I will show you this one because it's kind of cool. How about this thing? Windowsill plant, right?
Yeah.
Bicolor brasilensis. I'll hold it way up here so people online can't see it. I'll stand in front of me. So probably about 4 foot tall. I measured it one time. The biggest one we had 39-inch pseudobulbs, and that's measuring from the rhizome to the top. Same potting method, cork. Now I didn't tell you with the cork. What I do? Cork vertically, and then in the little crevices between the piece of cork, I'll wedge sphagnum in there. But it's a very, very small amount of sphagnum. This is probably a 6.5-inch pot. I would say it has half a cup of sphagnum in there. That's it. Tight and wedged in the crevices. And what that'll do is when those new roots come out, see those new pretty roots? Hold it, wait for it to focus. You always want to look for active root tips whenever you're doing bifoliate cats. So that's the time to pot it. So these things get tall and skinny. So it's not a great windowsill plant, right? Right, okay. Just making sure you're still with me. All right. Any other species up here?
Yes.
Okay. So everybody knows what this is? I'm testing the club. For those of you online, feel free to comment too. If you're online, we will monitor the comments, and at the end we'll go back and answer some questions. So if you have something you'd like to ask or whatever, throw it in the comment section, type it in. We'll see if we can get back to it. Everybody online is screaming that this is Cattleyas velutina. Nobody's ever heard of that, right? Anybody that's never seen this in the room, you need to come up and look at it. This one is, I would say, the more average of the two that have a flower right now. It has good color, but the other one is just really, really grabs you. One of the neatest things about this, I gotta hold it real still for you though. Got it? One of the neatest things about it is that the edge of the lip, the fringe of the lip is a different color. So it actually has like that classic sort of venation in the lip, but the edge of the lip is like golden color, which is really, really different. So I think it might be useful in breeding for putting a different color on the tip of the lip where you're not normally gonna see it. Also extremely fragrant, only in the daytime. Sorry guys, you're not gonna smell it. There's nothing here right now. And in the daytime, it's almost like, it's so strong, right? So velutina, it will get a little bigger than this. I don't know if Ben's online or not, but this says she came from AWZ down in Brazil. But our friend Ben out in Hawaii has been growing these and blooming them like this. So it's really disgusting to look at, but this is as good as I've done so far, but I'm just happy to grow it. Anybody ever go to a show and you have some salesperson there who are like, oh yeah, you can grow it. Everyone put your hands up. So Ron Kaufman was telling me, yeah, Dave, you can grow it. I'm like, yeah, sure, Ron, give me a couple. I'll see if I don't kill them. Guess how many I killed? None. 0. It's actually not that hard to grow. So this is a 4-inch plastic basket with moss. So there again, not even a cup of moss. And then I took the whole basket and set it into this pot. How many roots do you see on the outside of the pot? Now, for those of us up here in the Northeast, this means a lot. If you were down in Florida, which hello everybody in Florida, or if you're in some warm climate, it's humid all the time, you probably want those roots outside the pot. That's great. Here, we want them inside the pot. And for those of you online that don't know, the reason we do that is because they're gonna take up moisture better in the pot than they will outside the pot. We're gonna be fighting the plant nonstop if it's outside the pot. We keep the roots inside the pot, it's much easier to keep them water, to keep the water more regular that way. So this has a ton of roots, but they're all inside the pot. And if you look at the top, I'll show you online real quick. Not a whole lot of roots showing there. But there's a gap between the plastic basket and the pot, and they're just all tangled up underneath there, real happy. So good way to grow. So this is Bifoliate. All right, any more species? Okay. And this is, come on, quickly. Online, anybody? Online people are screaming right now that this is Cattleyas Schofieldiana. There again, awesome fragrance. But some of these little more obscure bifoliates that you may not normally see, say on your local Sandpiper Orchid Society. By the way, tonight we are in Galloway, New Jersey, at the Galloway Library for the Sandpiper Orchid Society. Everybody, come on, holler. Let's hear it. Woo! We got a nice crowd tonight, all that sort of thing. So anyway, we may not see these typically here, but if you're in South Florida or something, these are relatively easy to grow, a little bit warmer climate, good light. But one of the cool things about it, and those of you in the room are going to come up and look, the top of the lip that covers the column has this completely different color, and it sort of almost has like, I'm going to use my hands to show you, almost like praying hands that come up. It's like two pieces that cover the column. So it's really interesting. Come and take a close look at it, and you can see one flower's dying. You see that? You know why, right? Because I put pollen on it the other day. So those of you who don't know, if you pollinate a flower, you don't take pollen out, you put pollen on, you use the flower flaps. But that's awesome because I'm really excited about the cross it's going to make. And this flower is just super, super awesome. I can't imagine, like even the color pattern of the lip, if you look close at those of you in the room here, come up and look close at the color pattern in the lip. I can't imagine what this could do in a hybrid. It's got so many colors. It's literally like paint fleck on the lip. So it's really, really interesting. But there again, grown in a basket. I wedged the whole root ball in there, put some cork around it, little tiny bit of moss on top. That's it. So easy way to grow bifoliates. Okay, moving along then. Any more species?
Yes.
Which one?
All the above.
Somebody. Not all the above.
Yeah.
The alba, which we're going to talk about. And I'm going to make some people online very upset. This is, let me show you. Oh, so pretty. I've got to get used to my angles here. That's not very good. Okay. I'm going to cheat and look. Cattleya Orchids, alba, Marion Pfeiffer, CHM AOS. No, somebody in the room tell me, why is that the CHM? First of all, does anybody know what a CHM is? Anybody? Okay, so why would they give a plant a certificate of horticultural merit? Go.
Unusual color.
Unusual color.
Shape,
Unusual shape.
unusual size.
And usually something that hasn't been described before, sort of along that line, like something sort of new or different, right? There's a problem with this though. And this one kind of walks the line. For those of you online, they're screaming or whatever. There cannot be a true white Lepolii. Okay? Because Lepolii in its alba form is green, not white. So some species, real quick, probably something close. No, I don't. But you see like these darker colors that we're seeing here, these mahoganies and things, like these darker things? That is the typical form for Lepolii. All right? So anything like this that has like the spotting and things in it, if it's alba, it will be green, not white. This one opened white. I mean, like angel wings white, but actually has gotten some green color to it. So I don't know on this, but there were some mix-ups, especially down in South America. Sometimes we'll get some plants in and we think we got something new that nobody else has had, but then it proves out that it cannot be white. It has to be green. If you look close, there's a little green. So this one might squeak here. All right. Any more? No? Any more? Hello? Just yes or no, people. It's 50-50.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there is one, but it's in fun. So we're going to just move on. Okay, so we talked about a couple things. So in that big range I showed you, all these different shapes, sizes, some are short, most of them fairly tall. So if we're breeding with these, most people aren't going to be able to grow a tall plant. Now, for those of you who know me and talk to me long enough, I will tell you that I want to have an entire greenhouse of nothing but gigantic, the biggest bifoliates I can get. I mean, I don't care if they're 10 feet tall. I want the biggest ones. You want to see the biggest one that I have? Oh, no, yeah, I see. No, I'm leaving.
Yes.
I gotta get a better guess. I gotta get a better guess.
Yes.
Fine, that's close. It wasn't very good, but. For those of you online that don't know me, I'm 4.5 feet tall. No. That's the plant's taller than that. So I'm 6 foot. That's to my shoulder. It's every bit of 5 feet to here. This is in spike with a whole big wad of flowers that hopefully will be up here when it blooms. I can't wait to see this. This is the biggest bifoliate I've ever seen in person. It's humongous. I'm going to talk a little about that. Maybe we'll go from that right now. So I want you to notice something here. You see it online real good? What are we talking about tonight?
Orchids.
Nope. Specifically, Bifoliate Cattleyas. What does bifoliate mean?
2 leaves.
Thanks, Lana. This one has 3.
So do a lot of intermediates.
We've got to throw it out. It's not a bifoliate.
Huh?
So when a plant gets super happy, a bifoliate cattleya gets really happy, you're doing something good with it, you can get 3 leaves. It's a trifoliate, like a try harder award, right? Trifoliate, because if you look at the rest of this plant, how many leaves?
2.
How many leaves all the way back? 2, 2, 2, 2. See, the people in the room are smart. For those of you online.
You cut one off and throw it away, it goes bad.
That's true. That's true. It's like a safety parachute. I can cut one off. But if a bifoliate's super happy, you can get 3 leaves. And I like to call these banana leaves when they get this big. But one thing about growing them super big is this, and there's a couple things to it. Don't fall over. I even told them carrying it to be careful. That's going to end up in judging. Now, if you're looking online and you're from Mid-Atlantic Judging System and you see that plant come up and you don't award it, no, I'm just joking. If there's judges online, just laugh at me. I really don't care. But look, that plant has taken me a bunch of years. So I got a group of them from, I'm going to plug Ben Oliveros tonight. That's Ben Oliveros from Orchid Arrows, good buddy and an excellent grower. And I'll say, hopefully he's watching so he can hear me brag on him. But one of the best Cattleya hybridizers, if not in the United States, in the world. Anybody get AOS magazine? 1, 2, 4, 8. Everybody should. Look, support the AOS people. It's not that expensive, right? But if you look in there, they have an award pictures, right? All through there. It's hard to find a page where Ben doesn't have a picture every month. A page, and there's multiple pages. This is the guy that cleans up, right? So he does really great breeding, but I got a bunch of these from Ben. And when I first flowered them out, a couple of them were like, so I had maybe 10 or 12 total. Out of the 10 or 12, I had to narrow it down to like 2, 3, 4 plants that are the best quality. But with bifoliate cattleyas, this is key if you're going to show bifoliate cattleyas. You have to grow them up. So let me show you the plant. And this is, hopefully this gets everybody in online all stirred up too. See if I can get a good shot of this thing. No? No? I'm going to hold it still. They can drool on it. Da, da, da.
Looks good.
So, any idea what the parentage is on this? I'll give you a hint. It's Mrs. Mahler, which looks like that big one on the ground over there. Okay, that's Gutata bicolor. Okay, so that's crossed onto a plant called Malworth orchid plate. I'm sure most of the people in the room here know what Malworth is. It's a big standard yellow. And you got this. This is full grown, won't get any bigger than this. So you go from a 4-foot plant down to this, which is kind of cool. So when this flower first opened, this was made by a friend of mine, Joe Grisapi, down in Florida. First time I flowered it, I had 3 judges see it in the greenhouse. All 3 of them wanted to give it an FCC with 1 flower. It was awesome. It took me 5 more years to get it shown right for judging. And finally we did. We got an AM on it, I believe. I don't think I have the point score on here. But we did get an AM in 2014. It was actually 81 points. So it's really cool. But one of the neat things about it, especially you see online, is the band of yellow right across the lip. it actually goes all the way across, which is kind of cool. Usually you have like a spot in the lip, so this has like a solid band. So it's kind of a neat thing. But the color, you should see this in the sunlight. It's like glowing copper. It's beautiful, beautiful color. And there's only one that's actually better than this out of the group. One of them I actually called it Purple Monster because it was just grotesquely big and weird looking. But this is what we're looking for. So when you first flower out a bifoliate, you got a flower. So you got to look at it and say, okay, maybe there's some potential. This one was easy, but getting it up to flowering size was hard. And not everything grows big or better. Sometimes they always judges, everybody who's shown a plant here probably has heard them say, bring it back when it grows up. That don't work. It don't work. Because last year I showed a Centra Diaz Merelda. Everybody knows what it is. I like people shaking their head, they have no idea what I'm talking about. It's a type of potato. That's this green potato with spots and a white lip. It's awesome. Last year I showed it with 4 flowers. They said, grow it up. Took it back this year. And I think it had 15 on the head. It was like this. That's too crowded. What do you want? You know, it's like, there's no way around it. So sometimes growing it up doesn't work, but usually growing it up will. I'm going to show you another hybrid here. Ooh and ah if you want to. It's fine. Okay. This is folding up. It's almost finished. Pretty good flower though. So I know, I'm going to say it right now. What's today, the 25th? Sister Beth's birthday. Holler out to Beth. Davis, everybody say happy birthday. Okay, all right. So, but it's Beth's birthday today, right? So when you see a flower like this, and you say, that's pretty good. Look at the leaf. See how big it is?
Someone's asking the name.
Oh, we're not going to tell you. Somebody online is asking the name. I ain't going to tell you because I don't want you to go buy them out before I do. This is called Summer Condo. Summerland Girl crossed on Allen Condo is made by Fred Clark, Sunset Valley Orchids. There again, I would also consider to be one of the best hybridizers in the US for sure, and probably the world. Excellent hybridizer. And he makes a lot of Bifoliate Cattleya. So if this gets you all interested in Bifoliate Cattleyas, check out his website. So anyway, Fred made this called Summer Condo. I don't know if he named it or not. But when this one flowered out, I saw it and I said, you know what? I'll get that awarded. I will guarantee you today, you can write it down if you want to, I guarantee I'll get this awarded. Not only get it awarded, I guarantee a high AM. And you say, well, how can you do that? Because I've seen crappy flowers get high AMs. I have a photograph of my buddy down in Florida sitting down, and he's sitting, and I got a plant this much taller than him sitting. He had 2 heads of flowers in bloom. That was a low AM, and had a group of judges score an FCC, and it did not deserve an FCC. I don't really care. Yeah, fine, I'll take one, right? Whatever. But the reason they awarded it is because it was big. And it was impressive. I mean, everybody saw it, like, oh, wow, but it's just big. So if you show that one with 2 flowers, like I showed you, that's beautiful. It'd probably get an HCC, maybe an AM, maybe squeak it out. Guarantee grow it big, it'll get a high AM because it would be really impressive with a head of flowers on it. But how do you do that? So it's really important to pot Bifoliate Cattleya at the right time. Should I show you a little bit? No, let's talk about potting Bifoliate Cattleya. That's why I brought this one. Oh my gosh, holy moly. Ooh and ah, I'm gonna put it away. This is what happens when you get a speaker that says, yeah, I'll definitely come speak to your club. I don't even, I'll just show up. Can you even get a picture of this thing for online people? I don't know. It stinks. The flowers are starting to go bad. So this is an Allen Condo hybrid. So going back, probably grandpa generations, we'll say. This one's called Raspberry Smoke, and it's Allen Condo by Maui Plum. And this one's called Dragon Fruit. Anybody ever seen dragon fruit before? Ever cut open dragon fruit? It's got those little speckles inside, kind of a purplish red color with little speckles. This one looked great up until about 2 days ago. The heat got to it. But we actually took a cut flower of this out 2018 out to Hawaii and got it awarded out in Hawaii. But the plant's grown great since. But I want to show you something on this. And this is why I brought this plant, even though it's kind of pretty and all that sort of thing. The reason I brought it is for this. Can you see me okay in there? Okay, good. You see this big chunky growth right here? Yeah. I left the old flower spike on. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, probably 19 flowers on one inflorescence. Now this year, I'm going to guess that's maybe 12. So it's not as big. Why?
Because there's more sets of inflorescences.
Yeah, there are more sets, but the reason for more sets, it broke a double lead. So all the energy, if it had broke a single lead, it would probably got about the same size bulb. Since it broke a double lead, which is actually the 2 bigger growths, not the smaller one, that's actually growth off the back bulbs. That's why he's small. The 2 larger growth here, the new growth with flowers, or off of that one big strong bulb. So it sort of divided its energy, which is great because then I got more plant in the pot. But one reason I wanted to show you this is, now I beat this really bad. For those of you who don't know, you're welcome for me bringing these plants tonight. Come on, just laugh. Golly, people, you're my friends. Jeez. So I actually beat this up, bringing it here, putting it in the tray because I want to show you something specific. I'm gonna show them online first, then we'll show you. See those root tips? I was so scared to pot bifoliates. One thing my dad taught me more than anything else, Dad taught me a lot. He said, don't pot bifoliate Cattleyas until you see the roots just start. So you want to get those roots when they're just breaking through and pot it right then. That's the best thing you can do. Problem is, what's going on right now?
Flowering.
It's flowering. See, I didn't have to point to the room. The room was like, it's flowering. That's how good this group is, people. You guys should join Sandpiper's club. It's awesome.
That's right.
Yeah, right. So, but the thing is, I found, see, my dad did this thing one time. I'm gonna set this down. This is heavy and ridiculous. Let me see if I can get this right. It was actually in the 80s, I believe, the late 80s. We had a plant, Mrs. Mahler, which is like that real big tall one I showed you, right? And they showed it with 96 or 98 flowers. I forget which one. Either way, it's a huge number on 4 inflorescences, right? That's amazing. I mean, you're talking, and Uncle Bill still tells me to this day, I remember staking that plant. It had, look, a castle, like had the 4 pair of turns on each thing. It's just big, awesome. So I wanted to try and beat them. I said, I can grow bigger than that. So I'm going to keep potting it. But I was always scared because it's in bloom when it roots. So what do you do? So the only reason I know how to do this is I watched them. You can pot this type of bifoliate, maybe the hybrids, species, a little more careful, but with the hybrids, you can pot them up to a month after they flower. The roots will keep growing. Because I watched one time because I wanted to pot that plant. I was trying to get it as big as I could, and I watched it. And I thought, I can't pot it. And the roots just kept going and going and going. And I go back like a week later, and they're still going. A week later, still going. Even up to a month later. So finally, I grew that Mrs. Mahler up into a 14-inch pot, 7 inflorescences on it. You guess how many flowers? In the room.
100.
67. Yeah, exactly. 67. And I was like, all right. So I looked it up and I said, you know what? I got to figure it out. Everybody knows what a diploid and tetraploid is, right? Diploid, generally smaller flowers, a lot on stem, tetraploid, bigger, stronger, whatever, but less on stem usually. So I thought, wow, this is a tetraploid. And it was tetraploid. But I said, Dad's had to be a diploid. He got more flowers than me, right? So I said, well, I can figure that out really smart quick. I'll go look up the award, take a measurement of mine. I can't grow that big. Mine's tetraploid, right? His flowers were bigger. So me with less flowers, thinking I had something better, his flowers were bigger. So I cut the plant up. But I learned something in doing that, is that at least with the hybrids, and I'm talking like the one I was showing you here, you would try and catch those roots when they're just coming out. Now I've got roots here that are 4, 5, 6 inches long with good active tips. How can you tell if a root is really active? Green tip. How can you tell if a root is growing quickly? Long green tip. This is great. This is great. This is like Orchid 101. No, this room is nailing it. People.
It's got a snail sticking on it.
Yeah, it's got a snail chewing on it. That's good. So, but you'll see this has active root tips. And those active root tips will keep growing. And if the roots are cut, like a couple of these that I busted up on the way here to bring you this awesome plant, they're going to sprout and keep growing. I know it because I watched it. So stuff like this, you can pot this. So what I like to do, I like to let them get bulb over the side of the pot, right? Ideally, just started like this, just started the root. These have a couple of older roots they got over the edge. What I like to do is pot it in a way. That's one of the reasons I like to use cork a lot, is that cork doesn't break down, remember? So I can take that whole pot, like I showed you with that big, tall bifoliate, the real skinny one, in a clay pot. I'll set the whole clay pot in another clay pot. A couple of chunks of bark, let it go, right? This one is in bark mix. But the thing is, if you do a good enough job and get a good root system like this has, there's solid roots in there, right? I can take and put this in a bigger pot, chunky bark around it, and let it run for another 2 more years without disturbing that root ball. And I guarantee this will jump like it never was potted go.
Without taking it out of that?
I'll take it out of the pot, but I'll leave the root ball in.
Oh,
Now, in a clay pot, like the really picky ones, like that real skinny Bifoliates I showed you, that one I'd leave the clay pot on. This one though, those other roots will actually hold more moisture around the root ball and all. And I'm telling you, when I grew those big brooding atlas that I was showing you, that pink one, remember I said we got 22 flowers on it? The way I did that was up potting it. Each year, get it a little bit bigger pot, just a little bit. Don't over pot it, because you put this in a huge pot, I guarantee you rot the roots off. Has to have really good drainage. Don't over pot it. But if you can just get it a little bit bigger pot, just enough to let one more growth in that pot, gets a little bit overgrown, a little bit bigger pot, the plant will jump. It will never slow down. Because if I take this and hack this all up, make pieces out of it, it's going to set the plant back and it's going to be a whole recovery process. Point in fact, this guy, and for those of you online, I'll hold it up nice and close until they get a shot. See how the bulbs are dehydrated, shriveled? It wasn't happy, it potted at the wrong time of the year. Now it is recovering nicely. You can see those roots going in the pot. Got nice new roots going in the pot. So this will recover just fine. But that plant's all skinny and stuff. It's got what, 6 flowers on it? I guarantee you get more flowers on a stronger bulb. So if we can keep that just leapfrogging into the next pot, the plants grow amazing. So if you can leapfrog the plant, it'll grow so much faster. All right, let me see if I got anything else interesting here. How long have I been talking for? I don't have my phone on. I don't want to keep you too long, 35 minutes, okay. Everybody tired?
no.
Are we just getting started or how long do you want me to talk? Okay, let me see what else we got here. Oh, let's show you these. I got a couple of neat plants here. We're going to show you the whole procession real quick. These are some of the Allen condos. This one is probably the best one of all. You know why, right?
More flowers.
No, it's Allen condo variety Sarah off. Name of that lovely girl back there in the back. Bill Pan package, so Sarah. No, just kidding. So Allen condo, one of my favorite plants, and I literally hoard these plants. Now I want to show you this. This one is just spectacular.
Wow.
Look at the quality of that flower. Now, these plants look like absolute trash, don't they? No, you can be honest. The plants don't look good. See all these dead bulbs? Look, the dead bulbs and stuff back here. These got burned up in the greenhouse this year. Events didn't get open. These are in the roof of the greenhouse in April. When we got hot, no shade cloth on the greenhouse yet. All of these plants, my favorite plants in the whole world, got roasted. So they really got set back. I'm still dealing with leaf drop now 4 months later. So it's really, really rough. But this one still came out pretty nice. And I think it's one of the best ones. This is variety Joe, 87 point AM. And actually one of the few to come with sort of a copper tone to it. Most of them are really red or mahogany. This one came with a sort of a copper tinge to it. But you see these huge leaves? That's when you really start getting something nice. See that new leaf came out? It's only half the size. So think about half as many flowers. How strong that was. That would have been awesome blooming on that growth. I'm going to show you a couple of these too. And by the way, for those of you online, that's a 12-inch pot, standard pot with a medium-sized bark mix. And I know people down like south there, like especially in Florida, like, hey, you got to be kidding me. They would kill this if it was growing in the pot. This has only its bark pieces that are half to 3/4 inch. That's it. Might have styrofoam peanuts in the bottom. Yep, styrofoam peanuts in the bottom. We do that for good drainage and they don't break down. You don't want to get like a silt layer in the bottom of the pot, but that's a huge pot. I'm going to show you one more. Not quite as nice as Sarah. Right, now this is next generation anyway. So this is raspberry smoke. This is also Fred Clark breeding. And this just got 87 points a week and a half ago at judging. Overscored, but that's okay. Come on, you can laugh. I don't have another one to show you, but it's sort of an average one. That's the same cross, and that one, believe me, if the two were sitting here in their prime, you would probably award that one over this one. So this went to judging, and Beth called and she says, "Oh, I got 87 points." I said, "Well, I got one in the greenhouse then that's 125 points." Come on, laugh. Golly. So the segments are a little skinny, but she said the measurements on this one, though, we have an FCC that won the Miyamoto Award. That's best Cattleyas of all the Cattleyas that got awarded in the year 2019. One of this same cross got the Miyamoto Award. So that's best, but they got FCC. This one they said was actually the same measurements, but the measurements don't line up because if you saw the other one next to this, you wouldn't award this one either. But since it's Beth's birthday, we're going to show it. Everybody says happy birthday to Beth again. Yeah, you guys are on it now. I love it. You guys are great. These things, by the way, almost all of these will smell like cloves, like sweet cloves. but only in the daytime. You can stick your nose in and now you might get a whiff. But you walk out when the sun's on these things in the middle of the day. There are people that would go out, like where I have these things hanging outside their shop, or walk out there and be like, oh, they just standing there because the air is blowing off the bay and you just smell the fragrance. That's awesome. Okay, so you see how big those plants are though, right?
Yeah.
What if we could shrink it down? That cute?
Yeah.
Same color, spotted, real similar color pattern. This one is called Susie Stepnowski. Everybody knows Susie and Joe? Yeah, help out our shop and all that stuff. So this is Susie Stepnowski. So Alan Condo crossed onto what red Cattleya? Classic. Some cat nerd in here's got to get it. It's not vanilla. It's not vanilla. It's chocolate. Chocolate. See, half the room got it. For those of you online, half the room got it. So chocolate drops a small red flower, Rentiaca breeding. But you breathe that onto here, it's basically just miniaturized the plant. When this was awarded, this is the smaller piece that I had, the bigger piece got awarded at 13 flowers on one stem, but on a much more compact plant. Like this is manageable. Now I know I've got it all overgrown. People online are like, oh, it looks terrible. Oh, okay, it's my plant. But, but it's much smaller than some of these guys. And if you don't believe me, here, we'll do a comparison for those of you online because you can't see the plants in the room. Yeah. Do like that thing where you see the, can't see it. But super cool breeding there. And I just think it's cool because it's like a miniature. And I had one other one I wanted to bring you because there was a guy, John Stanton at Orchid Trail, made a cross of Mrs. Mahler, 4-foot plant, and crossed it onto the plant. I want to say it was Precious Stones, and I'm not right. It's not Precious Stones, but I can't think of what it was. Anyway, a miniature Precious Stones breeding. And the plant only grows about 12 inches tall. And the flowers look exactly like an Alcona. So that one's really cool. Tiny Titan, that's what it is. Thanks for helping me out. Tiny Titan. But yeah, it's called Cindy Lauper, and it only grows maybe like that tall. So super cool, but the flowers look exactly like an Alcona. So some of the breeding lines are doing it. Remember this is Judge's Talks, and now we're talking about the future breeding and all that sort of thing. But for those of you who can't handle a big bifoliate Cattleyas, there are some miniature options out there because of plants like a Cattleyas that's only growing 6 inches tall or so. We can really shorten the plants up. And of course, I had made that cross before the Cattleyas by Alcona. It's awesome. All right, so a couple of different breeding lines here. I want to show you these two. These are more intergeneric kind of hybrids. Pretty, right?
Yes.
So this is Cherry Sweets, I think. Got a cheating look. Cherry Sweets, I think. Cherry Sweets. So what we're doing here is we're crossing a large standard onto a bifoliate. Most of the leaves would be bifoliate. Sometimes we get a unifoliate leaf. I'm getting too many plants in front of me to get up close. But you can see a bigger flower size for a short plant. Because if we take the Susie Stepnowski that I showed you, which is really cute, to see the flower size difference? If you see them both sitting there on the show table or on a sale table, most people would gravitate toward a larger flower. But what this is bred with is a standard red. So big, like 5-6 inch flower red, but you really got a good flower count on a small plant. This one's got 7 on a 6.5 inch pot and standing about maybe 20 inches tall. So not a bad flower count, large flower. All right, there's a question in the room. What was it?
Someone's asking cherry what?
Cherry Suisse. That's S-U-I-S-S-E. And this one is an awarded one. This one is called Jean Gillian and has an AM. This one, by the way, which was the prettier plant, nobody asked about it, is Indian Treasure, variety Radiant Beauty. Really surprised somebody didn't put pollen on that already. But really interesting too, if you look at this one. That one. Huh? Pretty close?
Yeah.
Different breeding altogether, so kind of cool. All right. Moving
Somebody
along.
was asking what was the name of that.
I don't know if I'm going to tell you. Don't bug me about it. It's not available for sale, and there's none others like it. I shouldn't share that stuff. So that's why the problem is the online people. They want everything. That one's called Anthony Capola, and the variety on it, I forget. I got a cheap look. Variety Phyllis. That's Anthony's mom. Got an AM. I think I said 81 points. All right, a different breeding line altogether. Is this guy? Bactea grape wax. All right, this is like M&Ms in the jar. Anybody know how many flowers on that stem? In a room, take a guess.
25.
Yeah, I have no idea. Why would they call it Bactea grape wax?
Waxy flower.
waxing grape. It also smells like grapes when it's in, of course, daytime. It'll smell real good. So parents on this, anybody know? There is a cheat. Gutata is one of the parents. The other parent you should actually be able to guess. It doesn't bloom this time of year, it blooms in the fall. If you get water stuck, Orangiana, winner, everybody clap. And Kathleen, good job. Orangiana on Gutata. So you get really cool stem habit on this. So there's another variety. This is called grape wax. There's another one called Forever Yours. Anybody want to guess how many flowers you put on last year? One stem. Come on, guess. Close. 42 flowers on one stem. The stem actually grew like this and then branched at the top and had just a double branch on the top of the stem. It was the freakiest looking thing you ever saw. It stands like this tall and bloom. Unfortunately, Cymbidium mosaic virus, and it's been thrown in the corner. So anyway, I haven't thrown it out, but threw it in the corner. So I'll probably breed with it because still that many flowers is really impressive. But that's really cool to see a completely different line of breeding. That's stepping away from all these other things. And you got Orangiana at the top. So okay, now quickly, because I'm winding down. All right, a couple new things. This is Harrisoni, I believe. Yeah, Harrisoni Impassionata by Kodabeck. This has been named, and I don't know what the name is. I didn't look it up. Yeah, pretty.
Yeah, beautiful.
So we showed one of these at judging 2 weeks ago or whatever. Judges took a look at it, and it was better than this one, I'd say. The color of this one's a little better. The other one had better shape. The only problem is when you're breeding with, this has Harrisoni Impassionata, and it's loaded GZI, Harrisoni, whatever. The lip is pinched. You see how that's pinched right there? See that? See, if I were to take, and if I could, flatten it out, see how much prettier the flower could be? So sometimes that lip curl, which usually comes from a little GZI, will give you that little bit of lip curl, it sort of ruins presentation on the flower. I thought the judges were going to find fault with the lip curl. But they said that when they looked at both parents, they didn't think it was better to both parents. I was like,
There was a question.
go ahead.
They're asking, will any of these plants do well in a windowsill culture, east, southeast, or under lights?
Under lights is difficult with big bifoliate Cattleyas, and why? Well, it's not just the size, but getting the lights close enough. So if you have lights and you have your plants right here, it'd probably be okay. But that's 3 feet now or 2 feet from your other plants that aren't going to be happy. So you'd have to put those on stands and they just run through that whole mess. If you're growing under high output, I know Tim's in the back here. Tim's got a grow tent. He can grow the doodads out of Cattleyas in his grow tent. So you can grow under lights. You can grow on a windowsill. If you're growing on a windowsill, it's got to be probably south, southeast, southwest. If you're up here in the northeast, down south, you throw it outside and it'll grow. One of the nice things about these is most of their growing is done outside. They'll start growing, do the whole growth, and even flower outside. So if you can get plants that bloom while they're outside, even if you don't have the right amount of light through winter time, you should be able to squeak through. But that's something to think about. But they do get a little big for windowsill culture, but who cares about that? I'd rather have a couple big plants and something that we can see the flower on, right? Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Woo, man. Woo. We're almost done. And everybody said hallelujah. Okay.
No.
All right. So this is a little bit different. So I showed you the one just a minute ago. I'm going to pick that back up. So remember I showed you the Harrisoni, the pink flower first? So Harrisoni, this one shares the same parent. Both of them have Kodabeck as a parent, which I know I'm not allowed to say Kodabeck anymore. We're going to call it Sophia Martin Grex or some stupid thing now, which I hate. They went and changed the name on that plant, for those of you who don't know, and I just can't stand it. They went and took something that was confusing and made it more confusing. It was like the orchid politicians got involved. Come on, laugh. I know it's late. Okay. So the pink Harrisoni, and then cross on Kodabeck, which is like a light pink with spots. This one also light pink with spots Kodabeck, but cross on granulosa, which is green. So you can see kind of what you got out of both parents. So you can really see an interesting flower. I love this. I think the presentation's great. They really are spaced out nicely. Great color. The lips maybe a little small, but I would definitely keep this. That's only its second bloom. 5-inch pot and standing about 24 inches tall. So this one could get a whole lot bigger. So with these bifoliates, I really like to try to jump them and get them in the next pot when those roots are just starting, if I can, if they're flowering. As soon as they're done, a lot of times I'll try not to disturb the root ball too much. If you've got to cut the plant way down, you are going to set it back a little bit. But what you got to try to do is pot it in such a way where you don't have to mess with the root ball. So that means using cork, using big chunky bark, if you're grow in a basket, if you can, all those sorts of things will help. But I've found you can grow them with really big pots. I've grown them in Cymbidium pots up to 14-inch Cymbidium pots that are this deep with bark. So you can do it that way. And I've even seen plants grown in my method, even like down in Florida, stuff where it should be too humid and they still be growing. All right, I got one more plant to show you, because remember, I'm gonna bring this back here and show you one more time. Favorite plant right now from Ben. This is what? A trifoliate. Okay, so that means it's super happy, right? What's that? It's an airplane. It is a quadrifoliate. Look, I'll isolate, I'll break the bulbs, I don't care, it's all about the shot. How many leaves?
4.
4. It's a quadrifoliate. So apparently a plant gets super happy. You do a great job, you get 4 leaves and a quadrifoliate. Anyway, this mutant is also from Ben, and I should probably just send it back to him because it doesn't think I'm doing a very good job. But anyway, so that kind of wraps up what I was going to show you tonight. But really what I want you to remember is the roots are the most important thing in bifoliate cats. Hang on just a second. Let me go through my little monologue, and then we'll go for a couple questions. So keep the roots happy, and that means the right potting medium, potting it at the right time, making sure you don't overwater it, making sure you don't underwater. I got some stuff here that's too dry too. So all those things. Most of them grow in the summertime, like actively grow. Most of them put new roots out late in the summer like this. So keep an eye on the roots. That's what tells you when to pot it. I would definitely try the corking method with a little bit of sphagnum. I've had tremendous success. There is one I didn't bring tonight, and that's Shoriana. Shoriana I found grown on a plaque or a mount. So put the mount in a pot. Just like I showed you that double potting method, it holds the moisture around. For those of us up here, I'm telling you, I couldn't grow Shoriana, so I did that. Now it's no problem at all. So there are little things you can do, little tricks you can do to help you grow almost any of the things up here with really little difficulty at all. So, but keep the roots happy, plenty of sunlight, fertilizer, I'm not gonna get into that, but yeah, give them some fertilizer, it'll make them happy.
Someone's asking, where can you source the cork?
Cork can be a little difficult, but almost, if you go to a show, almost any one of the vendors there that are selling supplies will have cork. I know there's Green Barn's one of the places down in Florida. There's another place too in Florida. I think OFE should carry it too if you're in Florida. If not, I'm sure you can order it online from any one of the orchid supply places or greenhouse supply places should carry cork. We carry it at our shop. We sell it by the pound. So you can buy a big piece, little piece, whatever. We also sell tubes. You can grow it on a tube and that kind of thing. So all the things you can do with cork, but you should be able to source it pretty easily. It's not like it's very hard to find. Any other questions online?
No, they're just saying they also use wine cork bottles.
I do not recommend that, but if it works for them, it's great. One of the reasons you don't really want to use wine corks is that the cork is really dense and it actually won't take up water very easily. So, if you're in the area that you want super good drainage, great. But I can say from what I've seen with corks, I've never seen a plant grown well with wine corks. And I'm probably wrong. I'm sure some people can do it. But overall, wine corks wouldn't work very well. Comment on that?
Yeah, when they make the wine cork is not a single piece of cork bark that's punched out. It's actually a sandwich like plywood.
Yeah.
That they build this plywood thing up and then they press the corks out of it. So
Yeah.
you're not getting a nice airy product.
That's a good point. In case you didn't hear a comment on the back was that a wine cork is actually compressed pieces of cork, almost like OSB or something like that, where it's compressed pieces versus a virgin piece of cork, which is usually when you're ordering cork, you want to ask for a virgin cork. That's what you're getting. Kathleen, question?
Yeah, when you were talking about transplanting and keeping the root ball happy, and you showed a plant that cooked in the greenhouse,
Right.
create some heat, so you've got some dead back bulbs.
Yep.
What will you do when you transplant that plant? Do you cut the back bulbs off? Do you leave the roots, or do you take the whole section? What do you do for that type of plant? That's
Yeah.
gonna happen.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the one I was showing with heat damage, if you couldn't hear the question online, there are some bulbs in the back, and one of the problems with heat damage is, like I said, it's still showing up 4 months later. So really, I like to cut it out. Like, I'm all for amputation. I will take an extra bulb sometimes to make sure I clean up whatever's going through the plant. Because if you don't get ahead of whatever rot's going through the plant or whatever bacterial thing, you got to get ahead of it. So I will eliminate some of the older bulbs. I won't throw them out. I'll try starting with a piece from or something. But I want to make sure my lead is super clean. In that case, I'll hack it down to hardly anything and start over. But to get from that starting over place back to where this one was a year ago, I'm looking up at the mountain, Kathleen, like that's 5 to 8 years. from repotting it to get it back to where it was a year ago.
So there's no way around that, it's just damaged
No.
and you gotta start
No.
over.
Close your eyes and hack it off. Yeah, you got to do it that way though, because if you include those bulbs, you're always going to run the risk of whatever rot or bacteria is going to spread through the rest of the plant again, and you'll eventually kill your plant that way. So I always just say tear it off. Tear the
Do you
Band-Aid off.
take the precaution of spraying the fungicide when you have the roots out of the pot?
I don't, but that's also probably if you're in a high moisture area, maybe it'd be a good idea. I know people that would dust with cinnamon and all those sorts of things. We don't, and I don't. So I say we as in Waldor, and I don't myself either. I don't really have any problem. I think we're low enough humidity up here. Well, we're high humidity for like 2 months out of the year, which thank the Lord we're almost done with, right? Yeah. So, but that's one of the things. So you do have to cut it down sometimes, and you do have to start over, and that's a big deal. But the longer you can keep that root ball intact, so the hope is, even if you use just like a medium-sized bark, like we're like a 3/4 inch piece of bark, the hope is that as the plant gets really full in the pot, is that it'll almost eat the bark up. Like with this plant, there's so many roots in this pot that there's probably only 1.5 cups of bark left in that whole pot. That would probably hold 5 or 6 cups. So that's sort of the idea, is that the plant would just sort of use that bark as it breaks down, just get washed out the bottom, and it'll still be a great root ball intact. If you take it out of the pot and you've got mold in there or something, you do have to eliminate that. But if you don't break the root ball up all the way, you can make it jump a little further. One of my new things I'm doing, even with seedlings now, is if I'm dealing with picky seedlings, is up-potting them with leaving the pot on and just up-potting it to the next pot. Put a little bit of coarse bark around it, let it root to the next pot without disturbing it. And even the seedlings, it'll help them leapfrog. So there are some things you can do. You can start in a mesh pot so the roots can go out. I'll even take a mesh pot, set it inside a solid plastic pot, fills up a little moisture in there, and then you break that way too. So there's all different little things you can do, but definitely would say experiment. Make sure you keep the roots happy. That's the biggest thing you can do. Having that gap between 2 layers of pots is awesome. It'll really help the plants out without letting the roots sit too wet. Any other questions on the root?
Yeah, so you've got your little baby plants from South America. You've grown them up. They're moving from a 4 or 5 inch pot, and you've had them in moss to get them going. You take that moss off, or you repot the whole thing and just wait for it to move off the opposite?
That's an excellent question. So we start almost all of our even seedlings in moss, and we grow up to a certain point. And a lot of times we'll transition to the bark, and making that transition does set the plant back some. So you sort of have to make a call. Each plant's going to be different, but normally we are going to go to a bark mix anywhere after a 4 inch pot. There are some things, though. I actually have come up with some methods. I'm sure I know you've seen them at the shop, where we'll take a bigger pot or a basket, and I'll use moss. Like I do Orthovixiais almost in moss. Even I have some in 10 inch pots that are in moss. But what you do is, if it has a rhizome that's just one long rhizome and it's not branched out where it's filling the pot up. So I take just pots, regular, clean, not sterilized, but brand new pots, because we're dealing with high-end plants. Don't be cheap, people. 40-cent pot, $400 plant, right? Come on, I'm just joking. But what you do is take the pot and put it in with the roots. All right. So that displaces that much potting medium, so it won't sit wet. Good idea, right? Right?
Yes.
Okay. So, oh, you're sleeping. We're close. We're almost done.
Have you
So-
ever used clay pots for that?
Well,
I used to do that for my.
You could do clay, but once their clay pot's gone, once you put it in there. I use plastic just because it's cheaper, but I want to explain to you the method I'm using here. When I put that pot in, it's not upside down, it's right side up. Still displaces that amount, but as the plant grows, then if it breaks multiple leaves or it throws roots, I throw a handful of medium in there, and then it can go right into that pot. So it actually displaces it, but then if I want to, I don't have a big cone that's hollow sitting in the pot. I can just throw some medium right in that pot, and the roots will grow into that pot. So it can actually root out more in the plant. That way that medium's fresh, and it can really get whatever, say I break a multiple lead in the back, that lead can go right into that next pot. And I'm not gonna cut it off or anything, I'm leaving it all still together, but it displaces that much potting medium, and then I can just add it in later. That way it's fresh bark and not breaking down. So that's a little cheap method to get around. Some of what Brian's talking about is I can overpot a plant to an extent by using that potting method, and then hopefully keep the roots happy enough for long enough. Now, if I am potting in, say, a 10 inch pot, it's a 10 inch bulb pan, 6 inches deep. I don't like the deep one. Don't want standard, don't want azalea. I want bulb pans, super shallow, like 6 inches. And I will still throw peanuts in the bottom. I'll have an inch or two, maybe more than that peanuts. One other method, course, the same thing Brian said with moss. I like to try to keep things in moss. I don't really like to transition out very much. Is putting peanuts all the way up through your moss as you're going. So I'll sort of put peanuts in the bottom, loosely wrap the root ball, put it in the pot, then work a bunch of peanuts in, a little bit more moss, a bunch of peanuts, and I'll layer it all the way up. You wouldn't believe the roots you'll see in there. Everybody knows what phalaenopsis are? They're those big fleshy roots though. I've seen Cattleyas do that with big fleshy roots, but they're down in that medium where you have the moss and the peanuts layered up. Because they're not sitting too wet, you have these big, thick roots, and that's what's pushing everything up top. If you want good roots, you're not gonna have a nice plant. But that's a bunch of cheap methods around there. If you are gonna change over to bark, sometimes I don't take all the moss off, but I'll take most of it off. I don't like bark and moss mixed together. So you are gonna set it back a bit, but you do that, but then hopefully from that point forward, you're in the same boat. You just have it one starter point, and you should be able to roll from there. But the hope is to get 8 to 10 years without having to take the whole plant apart again. That's when you'll get these huge plants. So that's the key for all of us in trying to go big bifoliates is try to keep the root ball happy, try to get 8 to 10 years if you can. If you can get 6 or 8 even, you're okay. If you get 10 years, you're awesome. I'm talking about before you tear the whole plant apart. You're gonna be the best case that way to get the biggest amount of flowers.
Given the cost of sphagnum moss has been skyrocketing ridiculously, are there any acceptable, more cost-effective substitutes?
So she's asking because of the price of moss, is there an alternative? And what I did with the last batch of stuff I got, like, what did you do? What did you do? No. What I do?
What did you do?
Okay. Thanks, Dan. I know, but we're really close to the end. I used window screening, fiberglass window screening. Why? Well, glad you asked.
How?
So I crumpled it. So I didn't cut pieces. I would take a piece and crumple it, squeeze it, so it's like not compacted completely, but pretty tight. Wedge it in front of the plant. What it's going to do is, first of all, it's fiberglass. By the way, not aluminum, fiberglass. How long is it going to take it to break down? Never. It's gonna 20-some years, right? Shove it in there, it won't break down. But what it will do is between all those pieces where I crumpled it, everywhere it's touching, it's gonna hold a little bit of moisture. It's actually gonna act a little bit like moss would. And then you're able to displace all that area and do almost like the cork method where you're only using those little bits of moss. Don't overuse sphagnum. Like, you shouldn't have a pot that's all sphagnum. Use something as an alternative, but you have to make sure it can't break down because the sphagnum's wet, it's gonna break down stuff around. That's why we don't mix sphagnum and bark. I don't like that. It makes both of them break down faster. But this new method, I just started using it only a couple months ago. So this is like hot off the press kind of stuff. What I've seen so far though, in just the last couple months, has been amazing. The plant's growing like crazy. And these are plants that have very, very picky root systems. Like, if you don't get it right, you got 2 months and the plant will die. So that kind of picky plants, and they're doing really well with this method. So it's about displacing them all. So I don't think I'd use an alternative, just try to use less. Use something else that's not going to break down instead of the moss. Okay, I think we should probably cut off.
Last question online.
Okay. Yeah.
Says thoughts on inorganic media like Lisa or lava for bifoliates. Your thoughts on it?
Lisa, I'm guessing you're talking about like the expanded slate, is I suppose what you're saying?
LECA.
Yeah.
Lisa?
Okay. So the one problem I have with it, well, I have a couple of things. I think it holds a little too much water actually, unless it's like really big pieces. I think you would also have to sort of use peanuts or something else in with it. I don't like straight. I've tried stay-light. Stay-light to me builds up too much. It'll build up a silt in the bottom, and then the bottom's sitting wet. So I don't have good luck growing a stay-light. I think it actually holds too much water and it builds up silt. So I think in both those cases, you sort of have to use something else with it. Both of them will work just because they don't break down. That's an ideal thing. Big chunks of charcoal may work. I'm not going to go ahead and tell you to use barbecue charcoal, but maybe some big chunks like that, because charcoal is not going to break down. You've got, who knows, it might outlive you. So charcoal will work. I know Irving Grenier grew in charcoal, straight charcoal, did a good job of it. So you can grow in charcoal, but that's another method. Charcoal, by the way, is not some awesome filtration system. It's just inert. So, but it doesn't break down. So that's the same idea as what we're talking about online. It is great. If you can use something that doesn't break down, more the better, because it's just not going to break down. The roots are going to be happier. Any other questions on that? All right, well, thanks for joining us. We appreciate you guys. And thanks for joining us online. Howdy to everybody that's out there.